Hi everyone, and welcome to week 3. Great work. I'm really enjoying reading all of your submissions and then also getting to know you a little bit through your essays. So I wanted to first start this shout out video by saying how pleased I am to be getting to know you and how pleased I am at all of your um, really hard work. So it takes a lot of hard work just to navigate an online course, and you guys are not only doing that, but you're submitting really excellent questions and you're pouring your heart out into your writing for the most part. So I'm so pleased and so proud of you, and I hope that you will continue to persist and do this really excellent work in the class. I also really appreciate how you're connecting with each other in the mindfulness and other discussions that we have. So keep it up. I just wanted to give one reminder for this week, which is that you're going to be revising your My Name essay. And the way that you do that is to take a look at my comments. So I've made comments on the rubric and then also in the margins. And then I've also made a small narrative comment to you, just a little paragraph, as small as a sentence and as long as a paragraph about your work. And so to access that, what you do is you go to grades and then you go to view feedback. So you can see your work there. So I do the grading for this in a way that's a little bit unconventional, so I just want to make sure that you understand exactly what I did. So on your drafts, you'll see that you got 100%. So if you submitted something, no matter what, you get 100%. But what you'll also see is on the rubric, you'll see a score for each of the categories I was grading you on, and then you'll see a score at the bottom like 75, 80, 65, and that's the score you would get if you didn't do anything. If you just re-uploaded the very same thing, then you would get that score, which you are perfectly welcome to do if you want to, but I hope that many of you will look at my feedback and then submit a revision this week. So it's important that you submit your revision in the revision area in this week's module instead of resubmitting it in the same spot. The reason for that is if you resubmit, it's going to delete all my comments and you're not going to be able to reference them. And I'm also not going to be able to reference them when I'm trying to grade your work. So what I do is I open up your old draft with my comments, and then I open up your new draft, and I'm looking for the changes that you made. You don't always have to take the exact suggestion that I give you, but you do need to think about my feedback and see if you can fix any problems that I've identified. So you don't have to fix it the way I might suggest, but I would like you to fix it. So, or if you think that the suggestion does not hold weight, like I'm misinterpreting something, which does happen, what you would just do is write a little comment, hey, I didn't change this part because, and then here's my rationale, and I will always respect that. Or I'll engage with you and ask you some more questions about it. So I'm hoping that you find this method of grading to be fair and helpful, most of all. And I hope that you will enjoy working on the revision process. You have really wonderful stuff in these essays. Just another small announcement that this Monday I will be having office hours like usual, but next Monday, which is the first Monday in February, I will not be having office hours. So I just wanted to say that on this video. Mostly I'm connecting with you guys through email and telephone so far. I have seen a few of you in office hours. All of these ways are good, but just because I'm not going to be accessible the first Monday in February in person does not mean I'm not going to be available at other times, however you may need me. So please, if you're thinking ahead that far in advance and you feel like you're going to need a lot of help from me that week, just let me know and I will find a way to work with you at a different time frame. So that's that announcement. And then so now for the shout outs. So for the mindfulness book discussion, I felt like there was such interesting stuff that was coming forth. So Lachey and Tayana were making some really great points about memory and how to remember, and also asking about some memory strategies, like how do you remember stuff? And I think that it is an individual thing for sure, and that a lot of you had really good insights. But memory does tend to work best when there's some kind of active learning. So when you are engaging with the material with your pen, when you're standing up and looking at it, if you're a kinesthetic learner, if you are really paying attention to the distractions that may be around you and making sure that you're in a distraction-free zone, that can help you with your memory. But sometimes, doing something in a certain location is really helpful too. So if you find that you like to study in your bedroom in a certain spot, you might start associating the material that you're reading with a picture in your mind of that spot. So that's another strategy. Like if you find a really good spot to always do your work there, that can be really, really good for your mind and your memory. Other memory strategies are acronyms and mnemonic devices. We're going to talk about those a little bit later in the semester, but if you're trying to remember something specific and each part has a different letter that it starts with, you can make like a slogan for it. In math, an example is "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally." An acronym is something like NASA for National Aeronautics and Space Association, right? So those are other ways. There's a lot of different strategies. And the other thing is that you can Google memory strategies and see what the internet has to say. There's always really good information about these kind of things. People blogging about it. If you do a .edu, you can often get some really reputable information about what works for you. And I'd really encourage you just to practice it. Let me know how it's going. Also, when you give something your pretty much undivided attention, you're more likely to remember it. So if you're texting while you're trying to study, while you're trying to go on Facebook, while you're trying to do, play with your kids, while you're trying to, have the television on, it's really hard to multitask and be as effective. Though certainly it's really important to multitask, because how can you live in the world today if you're not doing some multitasking? So those are my thoughts on that. I appreciated those of you who talked about some of your awesome skills, like Sophia's use of a planner is really, really excellent. And many of you are thinking about getting on schedules, especially if you have kids, something that I can really relate to. So schedule is super important for me. And whenever I work, I have to be very efficient since I'm doing a lot of childcare whenever possible. So the other thing is that if you are able at all, if you have a kid and your kid is in daycare, or you have some other childcare arrangement, even if you increase that childcare arrangement by like 30 minutes, that can be really, really helpful. So if you don't have childcare, see if you can get somebody to come over and play with your kid for just like 30 minutes every week. I know it's really hard, whether you hire someone or just get a family member to do it, and then really use those minutes in a super focused way. It can be really, really helpful. And this is true if you have any other commitments, just taking that 30 minutes that you would otherwise maybe be doing something different, like just delay your TV viewing or delay your other work for just a tiny bit of time and see what happens with that. Small steps and small increments can be wonderful. So excellent reflections. I think one of the most important things is that you're reflecting. It doesn't matter what comes out in the reflection, but just being tuned in and being mindful in that way is really excellent. So this week you'll hear in 099 a little bit more about mindfulness and the mindfulness workbook, and you can start to ponder how this type of reflection is helping or even not helping you, and get a good sense of what you want to take away from it as you continue this course and the rest of your academic journey. So I also wanted to just give 2 shout outs. And the first shout out is to Sophia, who did a really, really amazing job carrying the theme of wisdom throughout her essay. So much like the essay Malia, My Daughter, which talked about the theme of royalty, Sophia brought through a really wonderful thread of how she has cultivated wisdom and in some ways been forced to be wise in her life. And I thought that was really wonderful. And I also wanted to shout out Zamora, who talked a lot about her family narrative and various relatives who were a part of that narrative. And she did it in such a coherent and moving way that I was really impressed by it. And some of you, including Patrick, have been thinking about, or your writing has made me think about, how do you share information without being maybe too vulnerable or like sharing more than you want to. So a lot of times you'd put in a sentence, several of you would put in a sentence that would lead the reader to want to know more information about a given situation, but then you wouldn't say it, probably because you want to protect yourself from maybe having to relive a challenging situation, or you think maybe it's not that interesting or related to what you're talking about, whatever the reason may be. I just want you to think about that. So if you're leaving us with like a little cliffhanger or a sentence that is kind of general and you know what you mean, but you don't go into it, that's going to be a little bit frustrating for your reader. So if you're not going to fully go into it, I would say just don't add those cliffhanger sentences. But on the other hand, if you do go into it, I think it's a very helpful thing. I think it can be very brave and useful to others if you're willing to go to the deep and challenging places. In my professional writing life, I struggle with this a lot. So right now, a little bit less because I'm writing a lot of children's fiction. But when I was predominantly writing poetry, I wondered about including narratives that involved relatives, and how would that, what would they think about that, and if they encountered it, and what would other people think about me. And as time has gone on, I found that it's good to be brave in that way, and that I've gotten more confident in doing it. And yet, there are some things that it makes sense to hold close and to keep boundaries around, or to keep boundaries around until you're ready to share. So if anything like this comes up and you, for example, don't want me to shout out anything about your essay, please let me know. Or if you don't want to share something, but you want to make sure that your essay is still compelling enough, just ask me questions about it. And again, I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you've been doing. I'm very moved by all of you so far, and I'm really, really enjoying working with you. So that's the shout outs for this week. Again, I would say probably doing 99 work first makes sense. There's a couple of readings and questions and annotations you're going to do. And then the main activity for 098 is going to be revising your My Name essay. Any questions, let me know. And also, there is a bunch of work for this week, so if you get overwhelmed or you need extensions, remember you can always ask for them. Just ask for them in advance. And yeah, anything you need, let me know. All right, thank you. Have a wonderful week.